Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Eyinnaya Abaribe, Committee on Power, on the frequent collapse of the national grid and other related issues affecting the optimal performance of the electricity sector. I so move. Debate on the general principles of the Electricity Act Amendment Bill 2025, which was read for the first time on Wednesday, 25th June, 2025. Objectives. The primary objective of this bill is to address the critical issues that have emerged in the implementation of the Electricity Act, EA, in 2023. Specifically, the bill seeks to include provisions that will, one, enhance policy and regulatory coordination between national and subnational governments to avoid legal disputes and inconsistencies. You will recall, Mr. President, that the Electricity Act 2023 now gives states, which are subnationals, the right to set up, distribute, transmit, and generate electricity. And we are already seeing within the Act several areas of disputes between states and the federal government. And these are what we want to cure. For example, in the Electricity Act, we have a provision, actually, which was unfortunately passed by us, that says that laws that are made by states actually supersede the Constitution. Because it says there that any law passed by a state with regard to electricity cannot be overruled or whatever, which, of course, the Constitution is very clear. Any federal legislation that conflicts with a state legislation, the federal legislature must take precedence. So we want to cure such anomalies and disputes within the Electricity Act. 2, strengthen sectoral financing in the face of crippling sector debt crisis. As of today, the federal government is owing close to 4-point-something trillion. And this type of debts can only be cured if the act is amended so that the balance of responsibilities rests equally on the different sectors of our economy. 3, to criminalize critical electricity infrastructure vandalism. You will recall, Mr. President, that a short while, there was a time that the eastern line taking power all the way to the north was criminalized all the way, was brought down. And the north didn't have power for a very long time. Unfortunately, in our laws, there are very, very minimal penalties for such great vandalism, so that national resources are lost, and we find it very difficult. If you take them to court, they can only do to the extent that those penalties are there. 4, to foster industrial relations in the sector by balancing the labor rights in the context of essential services. Because what we are seeing today is that power ought to be an essential service. So nobody should come and say, I'm going on strike, and then if you are doing a surgery or something and then the power goes, then people are put in, their lives are put in danger, and in so many other areas. 5, clarify the ongoing transitional arrangements in the transfer of intrastate electricity matters from the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to the state governments, especially in matters having bearing on the operation of the national grid system. The generation of electricity was privatized. The distribution of electricity was also privatized. But the transmission, which takes power from all the GENCOs passing states to every other state, was not. And so, by giving states the power to generate, transmit, we now have issues of who determines what, who takes tariffs within those areas. And we want to make sure that the coordination is properly done now to prevent future problems. And then clarify the framework for the Power Consumer Assistance Fund. The Electricity Act actually provides a Power Consumer Assistance Fund. It has not been operationalized. And so the federal government is still made to pay for everything that comes in and the bills that the GENCOs and the DISCOs give. Whereas the essence of that fund is so that the fund will be built up, so that if there is the necessity for any payments to be done, it will be done through that fund, and the federal government will no longer have that responsibility. And then to redefine and provide for the sector-wide framework for community engagement. Today, most of the places where the power plants are located, even where the distribution stations are located, communities living around there insist that they will not pay for power, and therefore that they should be taken care of. And there is no law that takes care of that type of engagement. And so we feel that this is the best time for us to address those issues, so that community youths, like they did in Trans-Amade a short while ago, will not go and shut down a power station just because they feel that their youths are not being employed. Because at that time, I had to go personally, and I asked the leader of the youth, how many of you are power engineers? Not one. So how will we employ you when you're not a power engineer? But there must be a way that we must create the enabling act so that we can, take care of this type of, and then to remove inherent ambiguities in a few provisions to allow for clarity, elegance, and all that, and then to fortify the existing institutional framework. So with these few things, the bill is encapsulated in 28 clauses. Fundamentally, clause 2, I think I don't need to continue with all that because I think I've you said sufficiently explained everything. So this bill should be seen as a part of the required legislative interventions which we normally do to support the reform measures needed to reposition the national electricity industry for optimal performance. The Electricity Act of 2023 is an extant law, which of course is subject to periodic review. And it is now necessary, since we gave the states the power to start setting up their own, that we do not wait until multiple litigations stymie the hands of the Senate. So I wish to appeal to Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, to support this bill for second reading. I so move.
Chief Whip. My name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished senators, I think this amendment, I will term it, is revolutionary in nature, akin to the Petroleum Industry Act that this parliament amended with a view to revolutionizing the industry. And this bill this amendment equally seeks to do that. One, against the backdrop of the fact that as a result of the amendment of the Constitution, bringing power from exclusive legislative list to the concurrent legislative list, states can now also legislate on matters concerning electricity. And this has brought conflict between laws that were enacted at the state level and laws that are existing at the national level. So essentially what this bill seeks to do is to also smoothen or bring it in conformity with the Constitution, the fact that laws made by the National Assembly are superior to laws that are made by the state houses of assembly. For example, as rightly alluded to in the course of his argument, there is a provision in the Act that laws that are made by the State House of Assembly are superior to the laws that are made by the National Assembly. This one is ultra vires the Constitution. So this bill essentially seeks to achieve that. And I'm also more interested with the fact that it also tends to criminalize vandalization of power infrastructure. Because in my own region of the country, there is avalanche of vandalization of power infrastructure across the nooks and crannies of the Northeast, to the extent that there was a time my state was in blackout for about 6 months as a result of vandalization. So what this bill seeks to do is to give adequate punishment to those vandals that are engaged in vandalism of electricity infrastructure, so that it will serve as a deterrent to will-be offenders. So on this note, I support the second reading of this bill, and I urge my colleagues to support it and pass it with speed of light. Thank you.
Deputy Senate Leader.
President, distinguished colleague, I'm Senator Ashiru, representing the good people of Kwara South, and the Vice Chairman of Committee on Power. Mr. President, this presentation is very apt, very precise, and a lot of work has been done on it. In particular, we want to emphasize that power in Nigeria had been a very, very critical impedance, both in economic development and the social well-being of the people. Much had been done under EA of 2023, which today is in transition. We are still trying to make it work. There are a lot of issues that we need to put dot on and cross the T. One area which I want to seriously emphasize is the issue of crippling sectorial debt. There are a lot of debts running into trillions of naira being owed to the generating company, discos, and the transmission company. And in a very continuous way, we need to rejig the enabling bill to make sure that things are straightened forth. Like I said, much had been done by the committee. I would just want to recommend that this report should go for second reading so that we can go into other necessary procedures that we need to pass the bill.
Thank you very much. This seems to be a very popular bill, but Senator Ali Roto bear his mind.
Let me start by saying that the Committee on Power has done a very good job and detailed and comprehensive work on this bill. It addresses all the issues involved in the distribution generation and even transmission of power in Nigeria. In particular, Mr. President, I take special note on the issue of debt, which the federal government is shouldering on behalf of discos and junkos. Mr. President, we have privatized power, and yet trillions and trillions of naira are being spent, and it is done on behalf of junkos. And this, sorry, junkos and discos. And these junkos and discos, they were given these assets, believing that they have all it takes to ensure that they generate and distribute power. But federal government is bearing the cost. So the bill has really addressed this issue. And of particular importance is the issue of vandalization. Several power installations in this country have been vandalized by vandals. In particular, I know one Shororo was not working for over 3 months. Kayenji was not working for over 3 months also. The chief whip has mentioned that the Northeast was in blackout for over 6 months. Mr. President, it's high time we penalize the vandals. Steep penalties should be imposed on these vandals, if possible. We should give them capital punishment, not only sentence them to jail term, but we should ensure that they are sent to the gallows. Maybe it will serve as a deterrence, as the chief whip has said. Mr. President, it's not only on power. Even here in Abuja, if you go around our streets, you will see a lot of manholes being removed by vandals. It is shameful. This is the national capital. And these vandals are caught and they are sent to the police station. The next day they are released. The Minister of FCT is doing his best. But this is not enough. We have to punish these vandals. If we don't do that, this will continue. These are national assets that need to be protected. If we don't protect the national assets, what are we doing here? So I thank the chairman of the Committee on Power. Even though he is our chairman, I participated in the deliberation at the public hearing and whatever, but I feel that I need to come out and support him to ensure that this bill stays through. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator. Chairman, Senate Committee on Legislative Compliance. You have not complied with how to indicate your desire to speak. You spoke, you were talking, you were saying you want to speak, you want to speak. Just raise your hand and I will see you and I will call you. So you have not complied. You have not complied.
Thank you.
You need to comply.
Thank you very much, distinguished Senate President and my distinguished colleagues. First of all, I need to thank the mover of this motion. It's timely, it's apt, and it's time to take this motion seriously. But my biggest concern, sir, is in this House that we have passed a motion asking the distribution companies not to increase rate. And that motion was disregarded. And they went ahead to increase the rates. So these are people that run to us when they have crisis, but when we deem it fit to tell them that for exigency reason, stay action on XYZ, they disregard our motions and do what they want. Secondly, sir, with regard to the debt we are talking about, sir, none of the generating companies has paid NMPC for the gas they have taken for the last 5 years. So if we deduct, this gas belongs to government. If we deduct the cost of gas from the GENCOs, from what they are owing federal government, there is no owing at all. I want us to be clear that if they do not pay for the gas that they are generating this electricity, then where would the government get the money to pay them for the service they have rendered? We need to take this thing holistically. And Nigerians should be made to pay for incremental charges frequently. There were more than 5 rates within the space of 3 years by the distribution companies. What is happening? How is the income of Nigerians? I cannot imagine, as a senator, I cannot pay my power bill for 1 month. Then what am I working here for? What of the ordinary person? I think we need to take this thing totally so that this rate of electricity should be generated in such a way that Nigerians will be able to enjoy these natural resources.
Thank you. Senator, oh, sorry.
This bill gave us a very detailed explanation while presenting the bill. And also in consideration that some of the concerns, like the one raised by Senator Adeola on the structure of the bill, is the reason why we have a public hearing, where some of these are going to be considered. Also, I observe that even all we are saying regarding this bill, we've had so many repetitions, several repetitions. I would like to move, Mr. President, that at this point, that we read the bill the second time and move to public hearing, where we can now fully consider. One thing I want to advise is that on the public hearing, where we will have time to debate, that distinguished senators should make out time to attend. So that we can do justice.
Thank you very much. Senator,
we
just 1 minute.
On the second reading, discuss all the issues that are related to this bill. It means that we are not going to leave here today.
Senator,
I so submit.
You agree with him? You agree with him? Just 1 minute. One minute.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is punitive measure. How can you install and you are paid for the job done, and then you now go back to carry it away? And when you are now caught, they take it to court and said they've given you a bail. If there is no real punitive measure like the mover of the bill said, we'll continue to go up and down. I remember in the 9th Assembly, Mr. President, when some individual went on the rail to remove the track and they were caught, Mr. President, it was not up to 3 weeks, they were released. And when you do this type of thing in other developed countries, you know the results of taking risk to want to kill or to want to murder other Nigerians. If you are a vandal and you are caught with this type of thing, there should be very strict punishment to serve as a deterrent to other people that, when I'm caught. Take, for example, if you are going to Far East, they will not tell you that don't come with a drug, but if you are caught, they will cut your head or you'll be shot. So everybody is afraid to do that. So we need to have a very punitive measure.
Thank you. Senator Yunus, 1 minute.
I remain Yunus Akintunde Oyo Central Committee, raising 2-3 issues. One, I observed that the issue of having regular supply of electricity, as mentioned by Senator Yai, does not only have to do with the issue at hand, as I discussed with the chairman. On his advice, he said I should raise it. That's why I raised up my hand to talk, that it should be more elaborate, and the Senate could as well make some proposal to the federal government. The electricity issue, Genco and Discos are not contractors. They are privately owned companies that are in operation and they are in business on their own. The main issue with electricity supply in Nigeria is when you license some people to generate electricity. You license some people to distribute electricity. And government, Mr. President, sir, Mr. President, and government is holding on to transmission. I believe that is one of the critical problems that electricity supply is having. If you look at the infrastructure in transmission, they are old and they are not being useful again. I have been an apostle of the gospel that government money should not be used to buy transformers. And I'm still saying that on national telly. When you buy transformer and you give to communities, distribution companies will ask you to pay for installation. On the day they energize that transformer, it becomes their property. If there is need to liquidate that distribution companies, what comes after it? It becomes their property. It means we are using government money to enrich some individuals that are operating as distribution companies. I still want the Senate to look deeply into that. Then, when we talk of subsidy, there is nowhere in the world where power is not being subsidized, even in the UK. We can't say that because these costs...
Senator, your time is off.
I'm rounding up, Mr. President. I paused when you are busy, sir. I paused when you are busy. There is nowhere in the world where power is not being subsidized. And we cannot say because some discos or some Gencos have mismanaged government subsidy, government should pull out of subsidizing energy. Energy should be subsidized. It's a way of giving economic running. I so submit. And I support the second reading of the bill. Thank you very much.
Those in favor that...
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act 2023 to make provision for emerging issues in the Nigerian electricity power sector, enhance policy and regulatory coordination, strengthen sectoral financing, protect critical electricity infrastructure, foster industrial relations in the sector, clarify transactional arrangements, redefine host community engagements by licensees operating in the Nigerian electricity supply industry, and for related matters 2025. Second reading taken. To a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Act 2023 to make provision for emerging issues in the Nigerian electric power sector, enhance policy and regulatory coordination, strengthen sectoral financing, protect critical electricity infrastructure, foster industrial relations in the sector, clarify transactional arrangements, redefine host community engagements by licensees operating in the Nigerian electricity supply industry, and for related matters 2025, second reading taken, and now committed to the Committee on Power to revert to the Senate in 6 weeks. Let me congratulate the chairman and members of the Committee on Power for this bill, and hope that by the time it goes through second reading, the issue or the issues that bother the Nigerian public will be addressed. Without electricity, there's no way we can have industrial growth in the country. And so everybody is looking forward to the transformation of this sector. So it's on that note that I commend distinguished Senator Abaribe. And let me use this opportunity to also mention the fact that I was impressed when you were contributing to the discussion on the demise of distinguished Senator Khalid. And you pointed out your personal contribution during his illness. So for this, the Senate appreciates you. But you made a profound statement that out there, Nigerians think that senators, a lot of money is spent on National Assembly, but once you step out of the National Assembly, you are looking for money to even treat yourself, which shows the fallacy of all the insinuations and innuendos thrown at the legislators. So I think it was an eye-opener for a lot of people. Because some people think that we come here to make money. They don't know that we come here to sacrifice for the growth of the nation so we can leave a better country for future generations. Thank you for that elucidation. Leader of the Senate.